I'd like to thank Stormborn for letting us host our meeting here. Thanks guys very much, we appreciate that. And this meeting is going to be on the biopellets and media reactors. We're going to go over that. But first I just want to introduce, I'm Terry, I'm FRAG president, and Bonnie here, she takes on a couple of roles. She's vice president and treasurer. Mo, he does raffles, so if you need raffle tickets, Mo will take care of you. Mitch here is mentor. There you go. And she does the newsletter. And our good public relations right here. So if anyone knows of any store or anything like that, needs anything, Lewis will take care of it and help us out in that direction. That's kind of his role. He kind of does the cards for the stores and keeps up on that kind of stuff. So, and Kelly, she does hospitality. She's the one we're going to thank for all the food tonight for bringing it. And so that's kind of the general, the board position right now and stuff. So each month we always try to think up something kind of educational. And I just thought biopellets right now seems like they're kind of the way to go. And there's a lot of different types that are out. This is a reef octopus. It's called the churn. I do like this style kind of over all the others. Not this particular one, and I'll explain why, As you can see how this one overflows the top. If you're going to have a pellet reactor, you really want to take the effluent to your skimmer. So everything that's coming out of here, you really want to skim. Otherwise, you can really get some bad algae blooms because the nutrient coming off of this is super high, and it'll really feed the algae and stuff. So really, you always want to make sure this water is being skimmed. So if I was to, this is mine, and I did buy it, because all I'm going to do is almost something like this in my sump and put my pump for my skimmer, and then I'll be taking it straight out of here, so I won't have to worry about it. I'll get all the fluid and stuff out of it. I just really like the way these move the pellets. They are more on the expensive side, This one's like $225. You can get around 200, it's just, that's where you're going to find them, between 200 to 225.
It could be about an hour, we'll do a workshop.
Yeah. There's a lot of different ones you can make. You can make some downflow ones, so you can make a reactor pretty cheap. You do kind of the same thing. You just want to make sure the pellets are always moving. If they start to slow down, then you'll find a real bad smell, and you'll find that's very toxic. It's a sulfur, and that's where you're going to have most of your problems when the pellets aren't moving. But just to let you know, biopellets are basically what spoons and knives and forks are made out of. That's kind of what this product is, and that's where it comes from. But plastic biopellets are used to remove nitrates from your reef tanks. Nitrates are a result from the breakdown of fish food and resulting waste from the fish eating food, and of course what they do after. So the biopellets release organic foods which promote the development of bacteria. The bacteria then removes the nitrates and phosphates, as well as acting as a food source for the filter feeders and invertebrates. So basically what this is doing is just getting the bacteria to grow, which eats the nitrates and stuff. When you have nitrates and phosphates, there's really only two ways of getting rid of them, and it's either doing a water change or finding something that can consume them. And so this is what they've come up with to consume the nitrates and phosphates. And it's only the two bad things about them is really worrying about your water discharge, not going straight into the tank. So some people were saying just put one on the back of the tank and let it run straight into the tank. You wouldn't want to do that because you're going to find you're going to have a lot of algae problems. So that's why you always want to have one in your sump and have your skimmer pointing right towards where this water is coming from. That way all this water is trying to go into the skimmer first. So also if you're using Kaido in your sump, you'd want to make sure if your water flow is coming in on this side, then this is kind of where you'd want your Kaido, which is against what you'd normally want to do. You want to keep Kaido out of the flow. The less flow it has, the better it's going to do. But you want to have your Kaido before this water is going in, because this water is going to kind of take away all the nutrients that the Kaido needs to survive. So you may not have Kaido if you put it downstream to this, because it's not going to have a lot of nutrients that it can thrive from unless you try to feed it with something. So that's only one thing to think about for the people that are using Kaido, which I have some, so that's why I've kind of looked to see what's the result on the Kaido if I use this. I don't know, y'all have Kaido? Because Stormborn's been using some.
Kaido.
No, because Stormborn actually has the reactor that I like a little bit better. They make this same reactor that's a hang-on, so you can either put it in the sump or you can hang it on the side, but also it more has this top on it, so you can get the pump from one, and then the outflow you can point right to the skimmer. Or you can make some kind of fitting that goes right into the skimmer. So to me, I think that that one may be a little bit better for the normal person, because then you don't have to worry about this having to be in something and me putting my pump to my skimmer in this, in a square or something in mine. Because like I say, the people that have problems out of the reactors are usually the ones with the super high nitrates. You're the ones that are going to have more of an algae bloom if you don't take care of this. If you run these, then your nitrates and phosphates aren't that high, you'll find that the algae bloom isn't going to be that bad. So on the internet, you'll see where some people are having big struggles with it, but most of the time it's always someone with a small tank that's struggling with it for some reason. So the large tanks don't have as much issue. As we all know, large tanks, you know, react much better to everything. You have more time and all, you know. So, like I said, some of these other ones, a lot of people are trying to use these with the foam in them, and then they're stopping up, and then that's where you start getting sulfur problems, and that's where you get into a lot of problems, and then people are like, it doesn't work for me, I've not had success. For one, they're usually not turning over the pellets enough because they're using just a media reactor. So this is more of a media reactor for charcoal or phosphates, and we're going to go into that too, so I brought some different products. But if you're using this, and you wanted to have one, and you have one of these to use, they make this type of screen where you can actually take the foam inserts out and make the screen to where, and they also have some round ones, but they only come in like 4 1/4 inch. So they may work for some of you, and some of you may have to just cut yours out with this. But with the foam, like I say, in a week's time, they're going to be so messed up, they're not going to flow the water that you need. So everyone's been using this, getting rid of the foam, and using them like that, and then just making sure you have a big enough pump to make your reactor turn. Some of the downflow ones really work good because they're pushing straight down through the center, and it's just churning up, you know, that way. So the biggest thing is keep the pellets moving. A lot of people talk about different type of pellets. Pretty much as long as you're buying an aquarium pellet, I don't think you're going to run into much trouble. Each manufacturer is kind of dashing the other, and people are too, the same way. You know, there's a lot of different ones. I know they have the Dr. Tim's and stuff. I think that's mainly the product that they're using in theirs. And so, like I said, there's a Boyd makes them. There's a huge amount of different type of pellets that they're using now. The biopellets also are for the people that want to have a tendency to overfeed, especially like flake food. Flake food's bad for nitrates. So I kind of, my fish, I use a lot of flake food, so that's why I just thought, I'm kind of always fighting with nitrates with the GFO running it or something, and for phosphates and all. So that's why I thought, well, let me get something that everyone's using. I haven't put this in my tank yet. I wanted to do this demonstration, so I went ahead and bought one where I could bring it and show it and everything. But this one's going to go in my tank, and I'm going to check it out and see how it works. And I can give an update on how mine's doing.
That Nano has biopellets running on it.
Oh, does it really?
Yep. Has a little reactor in the back.
That's neat. Those tanks are nice, you know. Especially I didn't even think about doing a little biopellet reactor on one of those. Did it charge the pellets pretty good then, or?
Yeah.
I have to check that out. But water flow is one of the biggest parts, and of course, like I said, the bacteria is going to be the part, but they also, several people also said some of these blow off nitrogen. So most people said that it's just the bacteria that it's doing, and some people say that some of it's turning into CO2, nitrogen coming off, and then also nitrous oxide is coming out. First time I've heard nitrous oxide coming out of it, but that's what several studies have shown, that those two. But most people only talk about the bacteria part. So
So some of it is blowing off on CO2 also. So maybe down the road they'll put an aerator in them just to blow off some straight out of this. Because if that was true, then you could almost induct a little bit of air in to blow off the CO2 out of this and have less to worry about going into the skipper. So all this is relatively new. They've been out about a year and a half, but they're really starting to get more widely used. You're starting to see a lot more talk about them. In a lot of reforms, a lot of people are starting to say, hey, I bought one. Has anyone else had good luck with them? So there's a lot of buzz out there about them. But it's just, when I was looking at them, I like the churn because it really, as you can see, there's not one pellet in it that's not moving, you know? So, and they say that's the most important part. And when you buy this reactor, it comes with this media. So you only want to put about a third of media in it at the most and run it. But this right here would be good up to a 300-gallon tank. You know, 200 to a 300-gallon tank. So a lot of people say if you got high nitrates, start out with half the amount first. The problem with starting out with half the amount, you have to wait for about a month for the pellets really to start reacting where they get enough bacteria started. So, you know, if you're impatient, you may think it's not working. I need to add more pellets. Give it a little bit of time, and then see where it's working. Because a lot of people say they work relatively quick. So if you only need half the media, yeah, it's going to do half the amount. But also, these can get in. You can get into trouble because you can strip too much nutrients from them. And that's where people with SPSs would have to worry. Like if you get one, you're just going to fill a bunch of media and you're not really checking, or you're checking once every 3 weeks, you're going to start getting some RTN, and then you're going to know right then that you got to turn it off. But if you reduce the amount of how much you have, then you're not going to run into as much trouble. So some people take, and the flow rate coming out of here, they reduce it. And that's a pretty good way of doing it. Once you start getting your nitrates down, you can dial it down a little bit. This pump, this reactor, I can't dial it down. So that's another downfall on this one. Where hers, you can put something on the type that she has because it's more like this style. So even if you had to add like two little fishies, little dial that they have to dial it down, you can dial that down. And then that's going to help you do the same thing where you don't have to take pellets out, just reduce the amount of water flow in. So either way can be productive and a good way to do it. Just kind of have to learn what works for everyone's tank and all. But any questions on the biopellet reactors? I don't know if anyone's going to try to use them or wants to try it, and that's why I want to let everyone know how mine's doing, and that way if you're interested, then you know, hey, this is working for someone in the club at least. We can, so that advice is always nice when you know the person instead of just reading someone's form, because sometimes it could be the pellet manufacturer saying, hey, yeah, I bought them, it works great. So always, watch what you read. So I look for multiple things saying something when I'm researching things on how something's working. And it really seemed like more people talked about the reef octopus, the way that it worked over the other ones. And this one is a neat design. Same way as her design is a little bit different. They actually have cups in the bottom of hers where the water flow comes in, kind of hits a cup and spins it around. This one doesn't have cups in the bottom of it. It just has slits cut at a 45-degree angle so the water flow is going around and moving. Is that what yours is? Okay, some of them, I've seen the ones that they actually have almost a propeller made on the bottom, so as the pump's going around, it's hitting almost like a water wheel underneath to keep them moving. Which, either way, as long as the pellets are moving, it's good, But I haven't seen anyone talk about this one stopping, where some of the other ones, they're really having trouble with these stopping, and then you're having trouble because your sulfur can come up and all that. So if you're not watching it, and most of these are closed up behind the sump, so if you're already looking at once a week and didn't realize it, your sulfur could be high, and then you're going to start getting having a lot of trouble in the tank and all. So I just thought this one, even if you said it was $225 for this one from the store, the biopellets are from 30 to 50, somewhere in there on the biopellets. This one at least comes with the amount that needed for this reactor, so that was kind of nice. Some of the reactors, you're buying the reactor and then you're turning around putting another $30 to $50 in it for the pellets. So it's kind of nice this one at least are thrown in, where most of them, like I said, you're buying the pellets after. after the fact. So that's just one thing to think about this when you think, it's a little more, I can get one a little bit cheaper. But then if you're buying the pellets, and the pellets last a year. So even if you're paying $50 for a pack of pellets, they last a year. That's minimal saving that we're really putting in the aquarium if we're keeping our nitrates down. Nitrates are also, everyone's heard of the misnomer about fish. The fish tank's too small, that's the reason my fish are small, because the fish can only grow the size of the aquarium. That's not true. It's actually the phosphates and nitrates being high. They've actually linked it to the fish being to where they can't grow anymore because of the nitrates being so high. So they've linked it now to where if you take care of the nitrates in a tank, you can get some bigger fish, your fish will grow bigger. So if your nitrates are bigger in your tank, large, if you have high nitrates and you think, well, my fish are 5 years old, it seems like they're not really growing, you have nitrate problems, that's why they're not growing. And that's going to do the same thing to your corals. You're going to find they're not really growing or anything either. So your tank kind of gets stagnant. Everything kind of survives, but that's what we mean about, reef tanks are always on the verge of crashing, basically, like if the power shut off and we have no backup battery and we're gone for 8 hours, you're probably going to come home to disaster. But, so a few things are like that, and that's why what you put in your tank, either you have to remember whatever you put in there has to come out somehow or another. Most of the stuff you don't want to leave in. The ocean's so big, it takes care of it itself just from the flow. So remember, when you're putting additives in, you have to take some of the additives out. Most of that's going to be with the water changes. That's why they say 10% a week, 10% every 2 weeks, or 20%. Kind of, you'll read all over the place with that. But even if you just do 20% every month, you're going to be pretty good, especially if you're doing SPSs. If you have less corals, you can do less water changes. If you have a super high load, then keep up on the water rate and you'll do much better in your tank. So I don't know how many people have nitrate problems, but I've been in the trade for a long time. It's one of the things that we always fight with. I do anyways. I'm bad about target feeding. I target feed, but I still excessively feed just because I think it's better for the corals and stuff. So that's why I target feed, but I watch out really with how much I do that. But my fish, for some reason, tend to like the flake food better because it suspends better. I've tried the pellets, and it just seems like I get more pellets for my inverts than I do for my fish. Most of my pellets, or even some of the floating ones, are sinking before my fish get them, and then the inverts are getting them. So I always feel like I have more waste with the pellets. That's why I take the flake. And at least they're suspended. The fish pretty much get most of the majority, for me, for my tank, the way mine is. And that's something to always think about, how you're feeding and what's being left over. If you get a lot of food being left over, suspended, no one's eating it, or it's going to the bottom, just back down and do a little bit more light feeding. And because that's the highest nitrate problem you have is the overfeeding part. And phosphates too. And so just kind of generally remember that. But I've seen a lot of the companies really bashing each other, saying their reactor was better. I've got this one because I was happy. I like the way it looked. It really moved the pellets well. I just really wish it had the top that this one had. For me, I like mine in the sump, so I didn't want the hang-on version, but I would like to try to do something different. For now, what I'm going to do is basically have a tub kind of like this inside mine, to where I will feed the skimmer off of this fluid coming out of here. And like I said, that's important to do. Make sure this fluid's always being skimmed first, because you're going to have an algae bloom if your nitrates are high. And most of us, when you're starting out like this, I haven't checked mine lately, but I'm sure they're higher than I want them. So I think this will be good for me, but I probably will put half the media in first, just to make sure I don't get too much of a bloom or anything. And I'll give it probably 6 weeks before I add the rest, if I want to add the rest, just to try it out and see how things are going. But if anyone wants to try to do theirs, Michael sells this stuff really cheap, and I think this pack was $1.50 for 10. So if you have one that's 4 1/4, that'd be great, because then you just put a center hole in it, slide it down in there. And if not, this was like either 35 cents or 50 cents. And this is knitting stuff for Michael's in the back apartment. Either one of them can help you. And online, this is what they showed to use. So I wanted to go down and buy some just where I could show you all. Take the sponges out, put this in, throw a bigger pump on, because whatever reactor, if you got a 2 little fishies reactor that come with a pump, that pump is only good for media, and media is the only thing, the charcoal or phosphans or something like that you're putting in it, that's the only thing you want to put into that. The biopellet really needs probably twice the amount of flow that any of the other media has. Media really, you want the slower. So if you had a pump that was too big, don't even use it. You'd want to go with the slower pump. But I'll get into the media part. So remember, you want everything to churn and everything to move, and that's when your biopellets you're going to have the success and not the sulfur problems that a lot of people are going to have. And I think that was the biggest part that a lot of people were having problems with. Their pellets sticking, them unsticking their pellets and not really keeping up with it, then them saying that it's just not working for them. And it's really the sulfur content that they're going into that's keeping everything from happening the way they want it to. But yeah, it was like Advast Marine, Dr. Tim's, 2 Little Fishies, bars, BRS, you know, for the people that are buying from them. They have one, Warner, and so forth. There was a lot of media when I started looking for this. And some are a little bit different shape, but really, I believe they're just buying the pellets from a source, and no one's really making these pellets. It's a byproduct that they're making the spoons and all that out of. So it's really wherever they're buying them from. These are more, this bag is called Spear, because this is more round. Some of them are more, a little bit more of a pellet shape in sorts, you know. So as long as they're moving, I guess it doesn't really matter the shape. I've not seen anyone talking about one better than another because of the shape or anything, or a little bit oddball or anything. But anyone got any questions on the reactor, or anyone got thoughts, or she can always give you a couple prices too. Like if anyone was interested in like something like this one, or I don't know if they can really see yours under there, the type that it is. And like I said, hers is kind of more like this, but hers hangs on the side.
It is meant to hang on the side, but we have it sitting in the sun.
Right, which is fine. That's why I like that, because you can use it either. Like this one I wouldn't be able to. But like I said, the thing with hers is it has the top side where you can dial it down or you can point it in a different direction. It would have been nice if this one had that. It didn't. They didn't have that style or anything. I wanted to get one for the meeting, so I just thought I'll live with this one and I'll make it work for my situation. But that's why I wanted to show you this one. This really wouldn't be my ideal one to buy. It would really be more like the one that has the top on it where you can dial it down. So if I was looking for one and more patient, that's the one I would have bought. I think they sell the one that she has, and they make one a little bit larger. And I would always want, my tank's large, so I need a larger one than a smaller one. So, and if anyone has like 75 gallons, I don't know how much that one goes to. I imagine it's 150 or something like that.
I don't know.
Right.
It's on the 75.
Right, which would be perfect, you know, for something like that, 100 gallons or under or something. So it really depends on your size tank and how much media you need. But each one is nice because they come with the bag, and I thought that was an added, because I didn't realize when I was buying it that it had the bag inside the box. So yours come with the media, okay. So I just wanted to make sure. So that to me, that's a big advantage, because it would cost you $35 to $50 depending on the name that you put in there, you know. How many people run the media reactors? Does anyone run a media reactor on? How many of y'all run carbon? Do any of you run carbon? They've always said use carbon sparingly. They've always said run it for 2 weeks and take it out. That's really not true, you know. A lot of the internet talks about misnomers like that where they're always saying it'll strip everything out of your tanker or anything. Really, when you're going to want to run it is either clearing your water up. It's super for when your water has a yellowish tint or anything like that. That's when you start wanting to use the carbon. You're going to find that that's going to get your water clear. But for anyone in here who frags, when you're fragging, that's when you really need to use your carbon. Coral slime is nearly 100% pure organic. And carbon, that's the only thing carbon does is get out organics. So when you're looking at what it's getting out or what you need it to get out, that's the only thing that's really gonna take care of for the most part. But I thought it was neat because does anyone know really what activated carbon is made of? What it is? I don't know. The biggest thing is everyone would say, well, charcoal. You know, I don't know how many people feel like that, the charcoal, because that's kind of the way it always looks and that's the way it is. But stay away from the one that is charcoal. It really won't get rid of the organics in there. It won't saturate. It's only for metals and type of stuff. So when you're looking for it, remember, stay away from it. The better stuff is always made from, let me see, I got it here somewhere. From nutshells and also wood that's put into an oven at 750 degrees to basically put cracks and craters, and they're all a bunch of micro pores. So basically what we're looking for would be the wood or the nutshell, staying away from the coal. You know, I would have never thought that the coal was that bad to run, but it says it won't take care of anything organic. And if you're cutting a bunch of corals up and they're sliming, you have to remember that's staying in your water until you do a water change or until you run carbon to get rid of it. So when they're all sliming up, if you run the carbon, it'll strip that. If not, it's breaking down from the pumps and everything else and just staying in your water column. And that's where you start having more trouble, you know, with the getting high and all. So, does anyone know what kind would be better? I mean, right now there's the pellets, there's the, a wide variety. I don't know what all types y'all actually sell.
I think it had a few kinds.
There's, like I said, there's a lot of different kinds, but just look at it and make sure that the charcoal you kind of tend to stay away from if you're fragging and want it for something like that. Metals we don't really have trouble out of or anything in the aquarium, so really only if your tank is yellowy or, you know, where you can't really see it well, or you're fragging a bunch, or your corals are stressing or tanning or something like that, that's the perfect time that you want to start running the carbon into a media reactor. And with the media reactor, you would not want to see the carbon churn like this. If it's moving around, it's way too much flow. Cut the flow back. Less flow is always better. All you're trying to do is eventually get all your aquarium water to run through it. But the slower the better. If you're moving the carbon around slightly, is okay, but that's it. You know, so you wouldn't want it to bubble, you wouldn't want it to churn or anything at all. So keep it on a slower rate and it's going to do much better. Otherwise you're basically blowing everything off. But you should also always, this is where a filter salt comes in good for, because if you have a lot of detritus and stuff flying around your tank and it's landing on it, it's not going to do anything because it's covering up the holes and stuff that it needs to be. The other misnomer it would be you have to have a reactor for the carbon. That wouldn't be true because carbon is electronically charged to where it's going towards the carbon. The problem is with the bags, if you're not filtering it, the bags get all the organics and different stuff around it, detritus and everything around it, so it can't even get to the charcoal anymore. That's more of a problem than anything. Charcoal works fine in a bag, not as well as a reactor because you're really feeding the water straight through. But as long as you have good current, good flow, you can put a carbon bag right into your flow area as long as it's not too high. And that carbon will work fine because it's electronically brought to it. And that's one thing a lot of people don't realize. Everyone thinks that you have to have the media reactor. That's why a lot of them come with the bag, you know. You'll see some of the reactors have a little bag to go into. And So I thought the carbon part was more for me because I've never really looked to see which kind I was buying. I've always just kind of made sure it was activated carbon. And but they actually say the charcoal isn't activated. So I guess I've always got the nutshell of the wood. So that was kind of just something I had never realized. So it says filter sock always 100 microns and smaller. Most of them are all that way, I think, except for Deep Blue has one that's 200. So really, like the Deep Blue, and you'd want to, depending on what you're doing, you want to watch out if it's a Deep Blue one. For some reason, they make a 200 micron bag. I don't know why, because most of all the bags are 100 microns, and you can really feel almost when you're used to your sock and you grab one of the other ones, it's like there's a difference in them, you know. So the 200 micron would not be as well. Yeah, 100 micron can be a little bit of a pain bag because once a week you're rinsing that, you know. And so 200, you're not going to rinse it as much, but then it's going to not be good for the activated carbon because it's going to actually get too much adhesive buildup on the carbon. The carbon's not going to do anything. But let's move on to what types of phosphate stuff. When some of us were fighting with phosphates and stuff, when I first got into the hobby, everything was really GFO, you know, granulated ferric oxide. And it's I think it's an iron product or something that they put on it. A lot of ponds have it. For some reason, the pond manufacturers won't have anything to do with the aquarium trade. They've made a deal between one another and they won't sell. When a pond manufacturer buys it, he's buying it by a big garbage can full at a time. And for us, we can't even afford to do that. We're buying these little bitty ones at extremely high rates. So the carbon's really gotten more expensive for us. So a lot of people have gone with like silver oxides and stuff. You'll find more of the silver now. The worst thing about the silver is the silicate remover, which is great, just kind of a byproduct because that's the way this is. I think a lot of this used to be more for like discus fish and angelfish. But now they've realized they can use it in the saltwater aquarium part and it works. The worst part is this will become saturated and then leach back once it's become to a saturated point. What's a saturated point? That's kind of hard to determine. That's why a lot of people say run it for a couple of weeks, throw it away, put more in. And that way you don't run into trouble. I'd rather know where my saturated point is. GFO will never leach back in. Whatever it sucks in, it'll keep. Even if you hold it in there for a while, the problem you'll see with this is it'll start getting algae in it, which tells you you've used it up. It's time to put new in it. So even though you're going to pay more for this, it's a quicker way to take care of your tank because this probably is the best for phosphates as far as stripping phosphates from your aquarium. It does cost more, but really you'd never have to worry about it leaching back into your aquarium or anything. But the other thing is a lot of us go with Kaido. That's what Kaido is. So if you want something more natural, Kaido, you can get a handful of Kaido. I heard Mitch say, brought you Kaido tonight. And Kaido, if anyone wants to grow Kaido, it's super easy. And if you have a bucket and a light, if you went to Home Depot and you bought a bulb called R38 bulb, they'll look like an outside light. They have some that have the screw top. The important part is it says R38 on it. And you buy just a metal reflector for it, put it on top of that bucket, no pump at all, put some Kaido in it, make that light come on for 8 hours a day. Your Kaido will grow enormous in a short amount of time, and you'll be giving away Kaido all the time. If you have it in your tank, a lot of people say, I've never had good luck growing Kaido. I've used this bulb. When I first got into it, me and Mike both told any bulb will work. Well, it didn't for me, it didn't for him. Slowly the Kaido got smaller. One of the guys that I know that's pretty knowledgeable, I asked him what he used. He's like, the Par 38 bulb. Since I use the Par 38 bulb, I can give it away and stuff, so it's no problem keeping it. But the important part is, if you wanted to grow it for people, no flow. For some reason it does huge and no flow. The ones that can't keep it are putting it in their sumps and they have too much flow. So if you say, I can't keep Kaido, I can tell you why. Too much flow. Throw it in something with no flow and it'll double in about a week and it'll triple. And before you know it, that's the only problem you have with Kaido. When it's met, it'll leach back too. But when it's to a saturated point, you know when it's saturated is when you pick it up and it's just one giant ball and you've got to pull it apart. It's time to pull it apart, give away part of it, and then loosen it again and let it grow, and it'll bind back up because it's growing so much, it gets tighter and tighter. That's when it'll leach back. When it's grown too much and it can't grow anymore, it leaches back everything that it's holding, and that's when it can go bad in your aquarium. So as long as you always keep it growing, it's one of the better things for phosphates because it doesn't cost you anything but a light bulb. And when that light bulb's going is, we're all doing it when our aquarium's shut off, we shut our sump lights on to keep our pH the same. So it's better for the tank because you're getting less swing. Every time your lights go out, you get a pH swing, which isn't the best for anything. Anything in our aquarium trade, you want to keep the same. So that's why a lot of people will have it come on just before the aquarium lights go out, and then it's feeding the Kaido, but it's also keeping the pH up. So that's the important thing about why it's nice to use the Kaido. You're using the lights for the pH, you might as well get the good part too and use the Kaido. Kaido is really not bad like a lot of stuff. If you got a little bit of it in your aquarium, you can get it out. Where some of the other type plant materials, good luck ever trying to get a hold of it. That's what they worry about here in Florida, where someone's ever going to throw some of the Corpulora or whatever it is. That stuff, they're afraid someone's going to go over the bridge one day and throw it off. The stuff that looks like little miniature grapes. When it starts growing in your aquarium, I don't even know how to eradicate it other than take everything out, keep brushing it, keep it out of light, and get it out as quick as you can. So if someone ever gives you a frag and it has that little piece on it, that's how I got it one time. It was on a frag plug, didn't know it. It started growing, and before I knew it, I had an outbreak in my aquarium. So that's one thing to always worry about when you get it. Kaido's not that way, and that's why everyone uses the Kaido. And even if the aquarium, even if the store had Kaido, it's not very much to buy or anything. So I don't know if that's one thing y'all have or anything, Kaido.
We haven't gotten it yet.
Right. But that's one good thing, you know, because in this trade it's always nice just to hand someone off some, and that's where pods come from and all that. So like if you're growing Kaido, you'll have pods and everything else in the bottom of it, which is great for your fish. So every now and then, if you had that bucket with no flow in it, you put a pump in it and take some of your aquarium water, pump it back in, and because in the bucket the only problem you're going to have is having nutrients that it needs to get rid of. So you really need to use your aquarium water to put in that bucket to keep that Kaido alive. If you made up salt water, you're going to probably have a tough time because that Kaido is not going to have nutrients to feed from. So always take your aquarium water for the Kaido, top off regular water with, make up some water for your aquarium and use that always. So when the Kaido gets too big, break it apart, give away some, and then take more, of your tank water when you're doing water changes. Put it in the Kaido. The higher the nitrates and phosphates are, the better it'll do, and the better it'll take off. Go ahead.
You mentioned that the nuisance plant you're talking about, the grape one?
Yeah, Corpulora or whatever. It's something exactly. I'm not sure exactly, but that's the one.
On a frag, would the coral dip get rid of that or no?
No.
That's pretty hardy.
Something like that, even if it's just a little bitty strand and you got it, nothing you're going to put on it is going to kill it because you don't know that it's there. Otherwise, really just brush it. You could get rid of it that way. But I don't know of any dip that would take care of it, so you would end up just having it. And if it was in the back somewhere, like mine was just on the back side, I had it, and then before I knew it, I had a problem. And it was really a very bad problem. So if you have that, just shut your lights back. The problem is with everything, shutting your lights back, that can cause coral death. This reactor right here can cause corals to die. You've got corals that you've had for 5 years now and your tank's up and running with super high nitrates. A lot of them corals have learned to live with that nitrates, and now you're going to strip that. several of them may not do well from having that nutrient stripped from them because they got used to it. So in this trade, slow change is better, and that's why slowly putting half the pellets in is better than all the pellets. Stripping it too quickly can be harmful too, you know. So that's why they say a lot of times start out slower with the biopellets and add them a little bit to where you're not stripping the nutrients real quickly, because anything quickly in a tank really is disastrous, you know. So that's what they say. The only thing that happens quick in an aquarium is a crash. But so really, when it comes to carbon, it was really these smaller chunks of the carbon that you're going to want to buy, not the larger pellets or anything, because if you're buying the smaller chunks, it actually has more parts for everything to soak into. That'd be like a bigger piece, you only have the ends and the outer surface, where if that bigger piece was broke in, you've got all the ends that can saturate up stuff. So really, when you're looking at it, it's more of the crush that you want. But always rinse it. Everything has ash. When you're cooking stuff, it's basically like soda ash. That raises your pH. I don't know how many people are used to using or dose or anything. Like your pool at home, you can buy soda ash, and that brings up your alkalinity. So if I just went down to an aquarium, not an aquarium place, but a pool place, and bought it, well, then I'd ask for soda ash, and that would raise my pH. You can do that in the aquarium trade too. They actually sell it, and people use it, and you just mix it with the RO water. The problem is just, you know, with running any kind of media, go slow with it. Don't go too much bulk and strip anything out fast, because that's when you'll have death in the tank and stuff. So really be careful of the media, and that's why they say the broken down carbon is the best, just because it has more sides to it, so you're going to really get rid of more stuff in your tank for the same money. Rinse it because it has the soda ash, because some people don't rinse it and then they have a huge problem with the pH spike, and you'll see the pH go up 3 points or so, you know, from not rinsing. So it's very important just to give it a good rinsing, get rid of that ash, because anything you burn basically is soda ash, because that's what soda ash is basically carbon bisulfate, which is baking soda, cooked at 350 degrees for about an hour, turns to soda ash. And then, so you can make your own soda ash if you wanted to raise your pH. So just be careful with your media, rinse it, and but I don't even know how much GFO, I don't know if y'all carry GFO anymore.
Yeah, we have GFO and the phosphorus.
But GFO, the thing is that you have to remember is when you're going to get it, do I buy just this little bit? Well, it's not really going to do much if I put this in here. So, you know, you can get bigger, and every time you buy something bigger, you're getting a better deal. Yes, it's costing you more, but it doesn't go bad. So it's just like salt. Getting a bunch of salt doesn't go bad. The more salt I have at home, the happier I am, because it's just a product that's going to wait for me to use it one day. These are the same thing. I've had these for a long time, and I kind of just brought it to show you. Yeah, for me, if I was going to use this, it wouldn't be that much. I think Ocean's Blend actually does come with a sock to run these, which, like I said, would be fine. You just want to put it in the flow rate where it's going to take care of it. But this, really throw it away after 2 weeks, because you don't quite know where that saturated point is. And most carbon, that's where they always said to run it, and this is the same way. GFO, you'll find it's going to run for 5 weeks to a month and a half or so before you would see it. It really depends on how much load you're putting in and how much you have in there to how long it lasts. But money for money, GFO would be the way to take care of any problem in your tank. To me, I'd rather see my money spent well, even if something costs a little bit more and I don't have to worry about a product going bad on me or doing something bad to my aquarium. I'd rather go that route. But since we've been using the PAR 38 volt, I've had good luck with Kaido. So like from time to time, if someone wants Kaido, I can bring you Kaido or anything. To me, that's a good thing to put in your sump. You just want it back in the part with less flow. But if you're going to start using the reactor, it has to be before it. And sometimes that's where your flow is the heaviest. So you kind of have to put it over in the corner somewhere where it's not quite as much. So, but any questions on any type of media reactors? I know two little fishies have the one now with the pumps. I don't know, what kind do y'all recommend as far as reactors and stuff? What kind?
Well, we've got the Aqua Effects ones.
Aqua Effect, right. There's a lot of different kinds, and really, they really generally are the same type of thing. I like this style more than some people are doing a lot of the RODI type canisters where they're doing those on those. Those work okay and everything, but a lot of them taking off the tops and everything. These are, I just like them a little bit better. I can see the media a little better. Some of those glasses are super thick. It's really harder to see some of the material in them. So these aren't a lot of the shorties and stuff. I think
We're getting in some of
Yeah.
the shorties.
yeah. And the shorties are good for a lot of the media to me. I mean, you'll see some media reactors that are super tall, and it just depends on what you need and what you consume and what you're trying to get rid of is the size. So, but for me, a shorty works fine, you know. So this was mine that I've had and used from time to time. So the worst thing is finding more foam or anything like that. Next Reef was pretty good because if you see them somewhere, you can get some sponges from them and all. So it's kind of nice. They're really nice people there, you know. So they kind of overbuild their products a little bit. So if anyone's ever, they're going to handle most of their whole aquarium thing was built. They had it custom built by Next Reef. So Next Reef builds a lot of different types of stuff, you know. So but they tend to overbuild their products. So sometimes people look at theirs. Their product may be a little more, but when you look at it product for product, it's a little bit better built usually. So their skimmers are like that. You know, their skimmers are a little bit thicker plastic and all. So, but I think very good product. I actually like their skimmers too because they put two pumps on them. And a lot of people want to use the one pump. So I don't know how many people use one pump, but when your sump goes up or down, that it's not working as well. When you put two pumps in it, that pump's feeding your aquarium, that skimmer, into that skimmer. It stays basically the same the whole time. So you don't really have to redial it or anything else or worry as much where the water is in it. But I thought the biochurn out of them all really moves the pellets neat. I wanted to get it in here to where you can see it churning, and you can see where you have $200 is a little bit of money. I don't know how much the shorties would go for, but you know, right. They're not real cheap either, you know. I mean, the two little fishies, I think you can get it more for 50, 60 bucks with a pump. But it's a small little reactor and stuff, so it really just depends on how much media and what you want to do with them, you know. So, but I guess that's about it, you know. And like I said, if I was you and I was interested in it, I'll let you know how mine's doing. But if I was going to buy one and I was looking at all the ones up, I'd buy the Reef Octopus, but I'd buy the one with the top like this. Even if it hung on the side, then later if I wanted to hang it on another aquarium, then I could hang it on another sump. So I could use it in a couple of aquariums. Most of you probably have a couple of aquariums. It seems like we all start out with one. Before you know it, we have two. Before you know it, we got a good deal on another one. And we're always looking for the next one too, it seems like, you know. I'd like to go bigger and bigger. For some reason now I want an 8-foot tank. 300 gallons nice, but now I want something bigger. But anyone got any questions on any of the media or the biopellets or anything? Any kind of question?
What about combining more than one reactor? One with biopellets, GPO, another one?
Well, if you have multiple reactors, it's not a problem of running anything. You can put the GFO in the one. The only thing they do see that I've seen is if you strip something out with all the phosphates, this won't work as good because it needs phosphates and nitrates to work. For some reason or another, for it to work, it needs both. So if you strip all the phosphates, this reactor is not going to work as well, and I guess that's just from the food going to it. So that's why no one has both of them running. Usually this will take care of phosphates and nitrates, but you could always run carbon with it and have no issues or anything. Or if your phosphates are really super high, then you can do it. But other than that, you'd want to just let this one take care of the phosphates and nitrates. Silica it wouldn't do anything with. None of us should have a silica problem unless we're trying to buy sand from Home Depot. Everyone used to get sand from Home Depot because the play sand used to be Caribbean play sand, and it was regular reef sand. And they've done away with that. They put silica in all their stuff because the cats love to go to the bathroom and the kids play sand. So they've discovered that they put silica in it and it doesn't happen as much. So all the play sand has silica in it now because the kids play sand. That's what everyone uses it for. The cats like to go to the bathroom, so they put silica in it now. So beware of that, if you're getting sand. So, and sand is illegal to get anywhere else, so you really have to buy the sand from a reef store. But that's about it. That's it for the demonstration. I know Mike's going to do the raffle, and we've probably got a lot of food and stuff. But if anyone also has any kind of like a meeting, an idea for a meeting, or you want to know something a little bit more about something or anything, we're always willing. Let us know on the forum line. Put something out there that, hey, you'd like to know more about media reactors, not media reactors, but calcium reactors. I've got calcium reactors and stuff. They're kind of hard to dial in. You really have to watch out for them. So usually only someone that's keeping a lot of SDS is going to get into that. So sometimes that can be more of just a certain amount of people. We like a meeting really that runs the gamut for people from the novice up to the people that are experienced like these are. Really anyone could run out and get this and have no trouble with this one as long as you're putting this fluid towards your skimmer. You'll find that biopellets work good for you as long as they're moving good. And you can really get rid of your nitrates and phosphate problems and start feeding your aquarium to full capacity and not have any trouble out of it. And that's what I'm looking for, to where I love to overfeed my fish. I like fat fish and I like tangs. If you keep the tang fat and happy, he's not going to be mean and aggressive. If you starve him, he's going to be aggressive and mean and go after every fish because they're competitive with food. So like any creature, if the food is limited, the king is going to eat first, and then the rest of them are going to get the morsels, and he's going to keep everyone scared and leery of coming out. So that's why overfeeding kind of can be a good thing, because all your fish can take advantage of it, where you have to worry about underfeeding, because you can get the tank will get mean and put clips in or something like that. Yeah, so, but I like the tanks. The tanks for us keep the algae down and stuff. And the best tank would probably be the self-vent tank. I think they say that's about the best algae eater there is. He's the greatest over just about any of the other ones. They say you get him and he'll pretty much keep everything grazing up good. But that's it. So like if anyone, we don't do a lot with just fish or anything as far as meetings of, what type of fish or anything like that, but we're happy to answer any questions. Mitch is a great on mentoring. He's been in the hobby a very long time.